Am I? Just a heads up, I gotta sneak out like 6:20, so
Okay,
I leave. It's not because I hate you.
sure. Should we call the meeting to order? And welcome everybody. Do we need to take a voice roll call? Is that official or do we? All right, we'll do a voice roll call. Angela? Welcome.
Good to see y'all.
Dana?
Here.
David? Here. Dave Jones is here. Joyce?
Here.
Terry? Here. And Preston. All right, is anybody else?
Kenny's the only one who's absent.
Right, looks like Kenny's.
I bet he shows up because he sent an email about the meeting.
So, additions to the agenda.
I think you had one day.
I had one.
Too.
You have one also? All right, so we have a couple of additions to the agenda that we'll handle at the end.
Well, why don't we identify them now? The one I want to talk about is the Ridgway turf replacement project.
Could you repeat that?
The Ridgway turf replacement project.
Good.
Okay.
All right, and the one I wanted to discuss was related to the building code updates and looking at some intermediate steps there. So new business update regarding Green Street planned.
Yeah, I'll take that one and just give a brief update on where we're at with the master planning process for Green Street Park. I think a lot of you were at the public meeting or the more of like a charrette that took place last week or maybe 2 weeks ago now in the Decker Room. It was really well attended. I think we had over 40 people there. We had quite a few folks from Super Bloom represented, the town's consultant, and it was a great charrette, style public meeting. Got a lot of really good input, and it was at the tail end of that the official survey was released. So there's like some posters around town and along the Green Street Park area that are soliciting input by way of that survey. So again, thanks for those of you who attended that meeting on, I guess it was the 18th. So that's the major update. Again, it was just the infancy part of the whole master planning project, an introduction, if you will, to the community on what the goal is for master planning, and trying to again garner ideas and initial ideas and feedback prior to the development of concept designs. So once that survey, which is open through May 10th, closes, myself, Deb, Super Bloom will meet to talk probably in great detail about those design concepts, and Super Bloom will be put to the task of creating a few for the community to consider. So that is the bulk of the update. I'm going to share the screen so Angela can see it. If you all haven't had a chance to check it out.
So even though our committee met with them, we should all individually go out and fill out that survey, I think.
That's right, please, by all means.
So,
and I'll probably elaborate and give some more guidance after we let Terry kind of give an update from his wheelhouse. But I encourage you all to get out there and encourage as many people as possible to take that survey, right? And it's a community-driven process. I know the SAB in particular, but the town council as well is honed in and very bought in on the solar array microgrid project that's been touted a number of times and spearheaded by Terry Schuyler here and SMPA. That's a huge piece, one of the main drivers and the impetus for this whole deal, but it's still a community-driven project. And so all that to say, I really encourage you all to get out there and lobby as much as possible for what you all want to see out there. And I know everyone around the table and beyond, want to see what Terry's going to talk about actually happen. But what I wanted to show you before I let Terry give his updates is we put out some press releases like 2 weeks ago, last week as well, some other communications to our channels about this survey. Stacy at Super Bloom and her team, they came up with this smaller type website where it will house meeting information. Folks can sign up for a listserv for regular updates. And there's a take our survey button. It wasn't working very well at first, but it is working now. You click there, it takes you to this Google form, which is the survey. So you can access it directly from the town's website. I think Terry and I were talking earlier today, the QR code may be a little funky for some folks, but the alternative is to access it through the website.
Not just the website, but
I tried the QR code and it worked for me.
yeah.
I scanned it and I got an error message saying danger, danger,
Oh.
about to get hacked kind of thing.
Well, yeah, in this day and time, in Ridgway, we need the website written out, a URL as well as the the QR code.
Yeah, does this survey go out with like, if you sign up for the town of Ridgway updates and stuff, does it just get sent out with those?
Well, it had.
Or it had?
We'll probably send it out one more time. We try to be pretty thoughtful and strategic about not bombarding folks. 'Cause
Yeah.
if you bombard folks, you'll start to see a lot of unsubscribes.
Yeah.
One question I have, Preston, regarding the process, or maybe it's a comment. I mean, I think the town has done a stellar job recruiting Super Bloom and educating them on what the town is interested in seeing. And which certainly includes a significant solar array. I'm not sure we did as good a job at that first meeting of selling the people who attended on helping them to understand why we think, why the town thinks solar is important. And I wonder if in the second meeting, we might come up with some way to, help them understand, we really endorse a significant solar piece because of X, Y, and Z.
I think that will be I appreciate your point and talked with Terry and some other folks about that as well. We hired Super Bloom for a reason. They provided a plan and a methodology for us. And they subscribed to holding an initial meeting to know what that shred style, just to garner feedback based on the theme that had been put out there, which was already a little cutting edge, if you will, to actually already tell folks and kind of.
Sure, the sustainability part,
Sustainability part.
right?
I've never seen that done before.
Right.
In a master planning process.
Mhm.
So I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I think you make some good points. I think, yes, this next public meeting, maybe even sooner, we're gonna need to figure out how to thoughtfully and strategically unveil that, not unveil, but like further that.
Mhm.
Let me ask you, were you in the, were you in the room during the first public meeting for the athletic park master planning process?
That's the one I missed. I was there for the second and
You were.
third, yeah.
It was a great meeting, great tenants and everything.
Yeah, the
And
pickleball
again,
people.
yeah, there will be over here. A lot of people here. We tried that. We tried doing that very thing, introducing the solar array concept and earmarking a section of, calling out specifically, earmarking a section of the park
Right,
for the solar array. It went a little wily,
right.
right? That's not even a word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I
A
understand.
little wily.
Yeah.
We learned our lesson. And, in hindsight, we could have done it differently. But we were wanting to avoid that.
Mhm.
So I talked about that at length with Super Bloom. That was in the conversation as well. Could we have done the first public meeting a little bit differently? I'm sure, but we're proud of it. I think it was super well received. We got a lot
It
of
was.
emails.
Yeah,
And you're exactly right. Again, we're gonna need to figure out how to thoughtfully and strategically talk more about and really unveil to a certain degree, maybe beyond what Terry is going to talk about right now.
mhm. Great.
Just a real quick question, do you have any feedback from Super Bloom? How many people are responding to the survey?
We have a meeting with them tomorrow morning to catch up on stuff, but no, I don't have a number yet. Like in terms of survey responses, if that's what you're asking, but we should know tomorrow. And then it's open through the 10th. We can keep it open longer if we need to.
Sure.
Can you project the email I sent out to, is it
No,
possible?
I don't have email on this.
Oh. Can I?
You can share.
I gotta log into the meeting to do that, right? I gotta go find the agenda meeting. Because it's imperative that I show this email to be able to speak to it, otherwise it's just all talk.
Sure.
Angela might be able to share
Where's
it. You
the,
send it to her.
Announcement for the SAB meeting that's in our emails.
It should.
Yeah.
Which the city proposal. Town managers
I
report.
slung a lot of emails today, so you can have her dig back to Friday. probably.
Angela's got her hand up. But she-
Yeah. Angela's got her hand up. Go ahead, Angela.
Thank you. Is it possible to edit this at all to change bee apiary to honeybee apiary?
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Okay, thank you. That's one word,
Okay, cool, thank you.
honeybee. That would be great. Otherwise, looks great. I haven't taken it yet. I just got back, but I will take it tomorrow for sure.
Great.
See if I can zoom in here. Hey. There it is. Zoom, I think. Sorry, I'm waiting.
Hi.
Or something.
Are you okay? Good.
I have press the direct me to H. Bear with me, folks. Join the meeting, here it is.
At the beginning, just talking a little bit about the Green Street park planning project. And Preston's gonna
Okay.
hand it to Terry here and.
Bear with me, and I'll be done with technical difficulties. With computer,
Right up.
so I don't want audio, right? Or do I? With computer audio,
Just turn.
the speakers,
We're going.
Good.
computer audio, no audio, how about that? Good.
You should be able to share.
Continue with
You're
audio.
a contractor?
No, let's say now,
But you were.
got it. All right, share screen.
Just
Yeah,
today.
where's that even? Wait a second.
The long time frame. And that party still has
Share.
the auto village,
Um,
so.
She's building, she's into the
penthouse is hers.
if she goes sell it, they'll have something.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. It's such a huge place.
and the sharing.
Good. Stop share screen again.
I asked. So why you do this?
There it is, there it is. As soon as screens open that aren't visible.
The signs still say spring.
There we go.
24.
Okay,
That's coming.
back on track. So to follow up on what Dave was saying, based on the meeting, that first meeting, and I think there's a common thread between what Preston was pointing out on the first meeting of the athletic master plan park, first meeting and this meeting, when the solar was presented in concept at the athletic park meeting. One thing that did not happen is the solar was not put in context as it relates to its participation in this microgrid that we have a grant to explore. The same thing happened at this next meeting. The idea of solar was floated, but not the context of why the solar was being targeted for this park, which is the context of the microgrid. So for your information, and you know this, but I'm just gonna repeat it. You know, we have a DOLA planning grant, it was $45,000. We've spent $41,000 in the current engineering to date, including coming up with the design for Green Street Park. The planning grant looks at a microgrid that includes a large battery bank to provide the entire town 4 hours of backup. And then 3 separate solar arrays distributed in the town, one of which would be Green Street Park, which is about a 425 kilowatt system currently as it's designed. The second is a 100 kilowatt system would be located in SMPA's yard on their roof and a solar carport. And the third is a 1 megawatt system targeted for Dana Ivers property. Since the planning grant was first initiated and we were looking at the full design of that 1.4 megawatts of solar combined with a 4 megawatt hour battery bank, I'm now disassociating the solar arrays from the battery bank for purposes of grant writing. So I have a grant submission due by June 13th. And there's two different grants I can apply for. One is for a microgrid that includes new generation, like the combination of all these solar with the battery. And the second is for microgrid hardware that does not include new generation. The program designed for microgrids without new generation has a cap of up to $2 million per project. The one with new generation only has a cap of $94,000 per project, which is why I'm disassociating the three solar arrays, Green Street Park, Dana Ivers property, and this SMPA into three separate solar projects that are in unison combined with the battery. And the next proposal I'm going to write, the next grant is going to be for the battery only. My thinking there is one, it's got more money. If I can get the battery funded and we implement that, then we have more time to go through the public acceptance process of the various solar arrays. The Green Street Park one, the one we're about to talk about, I'm looking at as the lower of the hanging fruits, so to speak, of the three. The one at SMPA is behind the SMPA's fence. It's a net metered system. It doesn't require public approval, but of the two, Dana's property and this, the one on Dana's property is going to require a county special use permit, which opens it up to the entire county for input. So I thought we'd start with the, focusing on the Green Street Park because it's got fewer residents to provide input and public acceptance of. So with that having been said,
Could I?
go ahead.
I'm sorry for but what are the batteries that you're gonna apply for? What does that mean, batteries only?
So in the mic,
Big chunky battery?
it's a big chunkin battery
Okay,
that would be located behind SMPA's fence. Originally, I was going to put it on your.
right,
property.
that's what you were talking about.
Right.
It's gonna go in town.
It's going to go in the SMPA's fence this is an interesting geeky sidebar, but when the town turned down the use of the athletic field coincident with your array, at the time, the design was to couple the solar arrays to the battery on the DC bus, meaning on the DC side of the system. Since we were forced to look at removing solar from the proximity of the battery, I've come to find out that we can AC couple the solar systems to the battery on the same circuit that the battery is powering. So when an outage occurs, the battery will immediately pick up the load on that circuit. And within 5 minutes, because it's required by code, all of the solar systems in town, including these three large ones, including the one on Dave's house and on my house and on whoever's house has solar, will then connect to the battery and provide the excess solar. So every solar system in town will be a participant.
Feeds the battery.
Will feed into the
It feeds
battery.
Battery, okay.
Excess solar. So that which your house is not using, what it would normally connect to the grid, well, now it's going to connect to what it sees as the grid. The grid's formed by the battery.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that means I can take the Green Street, the solar system that I was going to co-locate next to your property and move it to Green Street. And it'll still impact the functionality of the microgrid.
You're gonna put the battery at Green Street?
No, the
Oh.
battery's going in SPA's yard.
Okay,
Okay, all of these various solar systems, yours at Green Street and the one on SMPA and all of the residential solar systems, within 5 minutes of the battery picking up the load, they'll sample the grid and they go, oh, I see the grid's back. In fact, it's the grid formed by the battery bank, not the original grid. And all of those solar systems will connect to the battery and help extend the amount of coverage. So now, what was originally designed as 1.4 megawatts of solar for two reasons. One, that's the amount of solar necessary to recharge the battery, the 4-hour use of the battery on a daily basis. And then we were going to double the battery bank and push that excess through at night to get demand savings. That's a more convoluted story. But anyway, ignoring that, I don't necessarily have to size these systems the way we had originally designed because, the bigger the better, the smaller, the less coverage extension it gives to the battery in an outage. So that having been said, attended a meeting today with Super Bloom. It's hard to read, so I'm going to read some of these things to you. And one of the primary questions they asked was based on, they've seen these drawings here down below of the current design concept of the solar, which was, we had to pick a design to put into the planning grant in order to continue the progress on the planning grant. So this, what you see on the left is the same as what you see on the right, just different views, is approximately a 425 kilowatt solar system. So now let me just read what I've sent to all of you, I hope, but I'm going to read this anyway. So at the meeting I have with Super Bloom today, the question came up is how much could we reduce the size of the solar system? So the idea being that, because we haven't exposed the town to this size solar system, they're likely to go, oh, that's too big. And we want more bouldering walls and dog parks and, playgrounds and swings, et cetera. The input, as valuable as it was in that first meeting, was a smorgasbord of ideas. I equate it to putting a gigantic bowl of ice cream on the table and giving everybody a spoon. So you dig in and tell us what you'd like to see. And so that's pretty much the feedback they got. The scale of this size solar system was not presented in any way, shape, or form to those attending. So they had most of the attendees, other than those in the know that were there, don't have any idea that this is the size solar system that was originally envisioned for the park in order to meet the objectives of this microgrid. So that's going to be the challenge going forward, is how to interface this concept into the existing process. So the question was asked, what size, how much could we reduce this? So I've sent you all an email trying to answer that question, provide information and data to help make that choice. So when I was first asked that question, I gave some general answers. I said, number one, Town Master Plan and Climate Action Plan both provide guidance stating that the town should look to implement as much locally sited renewable energy as possible to offset the use of carbon-based fossil fuels for the electricity it uses. In other words, the town should walk the talk. Number two, we at SMPA attempted to respond to that guidance in designing a microgrid system to complement the 4-hour battery of the microgrid for power outage coverage. The benefit of the resilience provided by the batteries and the solar has not been provided in context to the public yet. Number three, the current size of the PV system in the DOLA planning grant was chosen to meet two purposes. One, to provide the battery charging for the microgrid to extend the 4-hour targeted backup of the battery. This is the resilience component. And two, to provide as much local generation of renewable energy as possible to meet the goals outlined in the town guiding documents mentioned above and agreed to and desired by the Sustainability Advisory Board and the Town Council when they chose to fund the master plan process. Three, the question might actually be reversed. The question might be, what is the maximum amount of solar that can be placed in the park? I mean, that's kind of reversing the question. The current design in the graphics below attempted to strike a compromise between the size of the solar array needed to meet these objectives and leaving enough land space for other purposes. So you've seen the drawings with the various other amenities that were originally sort of initially sketched in pathways. There's a, pavilion, one of the arrays is fixed to allow pollinating plants right next to the apiary, kiosks all around the plant. The solar array is fenced off as it has to be by code without raising it up. So we'll talk about that more in here in a minute. Anyway, so this was just a first drawing on an open canvas to act as a starting point. And that's what I had to do in order to meet the deliverables and the timeline of the planning grant.
Can I ask another question? What does it mean when you say that there's enough clean renewable solar energy to power 78?
You're jumping ahead. Let me
Oh,
read
I
that.
thought you'd already covered
No.
that. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yep. So to give some guidance on answering the question of how much could we reduce the solar system, I went ahead SMPA look up the data today. So the current size solar system, the one shown in these graphics here, is comprised of 721 590 watt panels, equating to a 425 kilowatt solar system. That size solar system provides annually approximately 750 megawatt hours of AC electricity. That amount of annual electricity is enough to power 78 Ridgway homes on an annual basis.
For the year.
For the
That's
year.
what I was curious. Okay.
Additionally, or instead of, it could provide all of the town of Ridgway's facility electrical needs annually plus 15 homes. And the reason that's significant is that, as you know, the town currently participates in the Totally Green program, whereby the town pays a penny a kilowatt hour extra to source the renewable energy credits from the other renewable energy generators that SMPA owns. We have 7 of them. We have 4 micro hydro systems and 3 solar arrays. So the energy credit from those renewable generators that SMPA has control over goes into a pool. And those that participate in Totally Green, some of you may, the town does, the county does, Uray County does, San Miguel County does, town of Mountain Village, town of Telluride, Clark's Market, variety of towns, and 350 residents pay a penny a kilowatt extra to access the credit from those generators. So this size system would provide enough renewable energy credits to power all of the town's needs that they're currently paying a penny a kilowatt hour for, meaning that the town effectively would be on town-owned property generating its own electricity to power the town loads plus 15 homes. So if I took the 15 homes off and I said, well, what, if we had to shrink it by 20%, it would still power enough to provide the RECs that the town is purchasing on an annual basis. And that would equate to a 345 kilowatt system. So we could shrink it by 20%, still meet the town's objective of producing its own electricity. And when I say the town, it's the town facility. So it's the water treatment plant, the sewer treatment plant, all of the town's electric accounts, including the lighting in town. Everything that we're powering right now would be covered by the electricity produced by the solar array. So the point of this is, so the question I put before SAB and town council is, how much should we consider reducing the size of the current solar arrays planned for this park? It's currently designed to provide 100% of the town's needs plus 15 homes, or the equivalent of 78 homes. If we shrunk it by 20%, 20% reduction in the size of the array, it would still cover this, but has no slack for load growth or any additional town benefits. So from an SMPA point of view, not my personal point of view or my town council hat, SMPA will do whatever, will design the system to whatever is the will of the SAB and the council, and by extension, the town residents. So SMPA does not have a dog in the fight. They don't care how big it is. Who should care is the SAB and the town residents.
Are these figures that you just gave us as far as a 20% reduction and what it would do? We're talking about just Green Street here. We're not
Just Green
talking
Street.
about Dana's property. We're not
Right.
talking
And
about-
the reason I'm doing that is that if we put solar on the Green Street town-owned property, I can make a case to SMPA that the town should have exclusive access to that power. They should have the right to source their renewable energy credits from in exchange for the lease of the property. They're giving them some sort of exclusivity. The town wouldn't have exclusive access to the solar on Dana's property. That would go into the general SMPA pool that helps cover the REC purchases from somebody in Nuclear Natarito or Town Mountain Village or anything. That goes into the general pool. But I can make a case to SMPA that if the town leases town-owned land, they should be able to have the benefit of claiming that electricity. And that's kind of a perk. So that concept, the concept of the microgrid itself, has not been presented to the public. It's a little nuanced, as you can see. It takes a little explanation, but it also helps provide context and background to why the solar system should be as big as what we've drawn it already. And if you don't want it that big, these are the consequences, that it reduces the benefit to the town.
But I like your kind of fallback that, we can present the full picture and we can have a 20%.
Or more, if they
reduction.
say we want it half that size.
No, but we have a reason for,
Some numbers to help make that informed decision.
right, yeah. So it's a bargaining.
So my ask or my participation in this committee, by the way, I am now the town ex officio member of the committee, now that JT is gone, so I went from what do you call it, substitute. No. I was the
Alternate,
Now
yeah.
I'm primary.
From the
My
back.
input to this committee is if you agree, as I present, that we should attempt to at least keep the size of the system enough to provide town loads, then the SAB ought to get behind that message and message that to Super Bloom and then help message that to the community. Otherwise, that message is lost and the process I used to use the analogy that a camel is a horse designed by a committee. We're gonna build a camel and the horse will never have gotten out of the gates.
Is this picture representative of 721 panels?
Yes, that is the current design. And so for context, this size, the system, where's my mouse?
Just to let you know, Angela has her hand raised.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
bear with me, Angela, I
If-
can't find my mouse.
For some reason, we want and, use the 20% reduced panel size as an alternate. I would assume it would cost more to have Super Bloom draw two proposals.
Well, it's some of, I have given them access to the company that did these drawings, the one on the right down here. So that they have, and they can do their own. One quick thing to point out is you see that the solar array is broken into two different types. I purposely designed the array up here to be a fixed array with pollinating plants underneath of it because it's in close proximity to the apiary. I didn't, according to the apiary folks, they don't want a lot of pedestrian traffic near the beehives. So this, I suggested in today's meeting, should remain essentially the same, meaning that if they're going to take an axe to things, they should take it to the array down here. And as you can see, this array is broken into 11 segments, and each of those segments has a separate tracking component. So this array actually tracks. It goes, currently in this drawing, it's facing east. During the day, it would pivot over and face west. And part of that was twofold. One, to demonstrate different methods of mounting solar, fixed versus tracking. And two, you get more kilowatt hours, more energy production per square foot when you track. So it takes less land to produce more electricity. So if they were to axe some of the size of the system, my suggestion was they axe it out of the southern portion of the array. The other thing that became a prominent, not a consensus, but a suggestion was, and they've designed parks with solar before, is having the array elevated so high that people can walk underneath of it and do yoga underneath it, pictures of people doing yoga. That's all possible. It's possible to do that. It just comes at an additional cost. So in order to make this system cost effective for SMPA to actually have the board of directors agree to fund the balance of the capital costs after the grants, it has to produce electricity that is cost competitive with what they're paying for now. If it costs more to produce, which it likely would without the grants, then that gap has to be funded by the members, which means it impacts the rates that everybody pays, which means theoretically the people in Nuclear would be paying extra to provide a park amenity in Ridgway. So one of the issues that we should all understand is that the cost of the park amenities and anything other than the most economical use of solar would have to be borne by the town. It can't be borne by SMPA members. So that's another consideration that has to go into the formula, the calculus of the whole thing.
And how much do you think that would be?
Don't know yet because I don't know what, I don't know what the camel's gonna look
Just
like yet.
off the top of your head? Any idea?
How much smaller are we gonna make it? The smaller we make it, the less cost effective it is because economies of scale.
Right.
The higher we raise it up, the more costly it becomes. Those costs have to be determined yet.
Angela?
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, thank you. A couple things. One, thanks, Terry. Awesome. I'm psyched you're on the committee. The map is very out of date because all those empty lots to the east are full of houses.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's,
I don't know if it's possible to update that before the presentation, but I think that does visually make a difference for a presentation.
I agree. And the reason for that is this was designed 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That's how long I've been working on this project. The one on the left, the one on the right is the more modern rendition. And there's I have an interactive map I can show you that does show some of the houses in there. But even since that was built, 3 new houses have popped up.
It's full.
Yeah.
Another point is to me, I mean, I'm fully supportive of it as is, but in terms of like an educational, experimental, sustainability park, it seems like it would be really neat if we could just have a variety of ways that the solar could be displayed, like maybe the closest panels to the parking lot, maybe those could be raised up, those first 3 little close rows. Maybe those could be raised up and like as a demonstration that you can build solar like this to make it usable underneath. And then, like closer to the apiary, maybe that we have pollinating plants, or even the community garden does a project under there, if they're a little raised up, to show some of the ways of that solar is being used that's more compatible, that's not just a visual impact, that it actually, you can use it for shade, you can, use it to grow different types of plants and things like that. I think that would add a lot of visual attraction to the park if it had a little bit more verticality and different ways of having solar on a landscape. And then I absolutely think that little pavilion should have solar panels on it. That seems like a no-brainer.
Those are all great suggestions. In fact, they mimic a number of the suggestions that came out of that first meeting. I'm
Oh,
trying to
great.
get a good picture of it, but I'm having trouble. One of the possibilities too is that you can see down here in the lower corner where the parking area is, and there's currently I've drawn in EV charging stations and solar powered street lights. You could cover that with a solar carport. Again, that would, if you put a solar carport over the parking lot, it creates shade, and it's also another demonstration of the use of solar, and it could then subtract an equivalent amount of solar from this array. Again, the solar carport is a cool idea. Putting solar on the pavilion, there's only a little bit of, depending upon how big they build the pavilion, there's only a little bit of useful surface, but why not put it on
Why
there?
not?
All of these other than the commercial scale solar arrays would just add cost. So
Yeah.
anything can be done. It's just how much does it cost? And who covers the delta? Right now, from SMPA's point of view, the less variance there is in the array, the more industrial it can be built, the cheaper it is, the more likely it's going to be cost competitive to the fossil fuel power that we're paying for now. So that's what this whole master plan process is going to spit out, or some of these other cool ideas. And I would love to see solar on the pavilion. I would love to see solar on the park benches. I would love to see
For sure.
solar covered parking space there. It's just that those don't make it any more economical. They just make it more attractive. So that's the balance that has to be.
Well, and efficient.
And just lastly, and then I'll let you guys go back to your discussion. It's that we've learned a lot from failures of other proposals like OFER, and I wonder if you have a collection of the things that we've learned that people questioned or that they opposed. Like I remember in OFER there was concern that it's a health hazard, that if you're so certain amount of distance away, living away from a solar array, that it could be damaging to your health. And I just wonder if we as a committee can be really prepared when we do roll this out and show what we're thinking, that we already have the answers to the questions that are going to come up, so we can either give those answers credibility or the questions credibility, or discount them based on science.
I have
and I
some.
think it's going to be
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. I have an update on that issue. I've been working with San Miguel County, that they have gone through a moratorium on placing solar on county-owned property based on a lot of the misinformation that came out of this Wrights Mesa solar thing, including the idea that the solar systems would leak toxins into the soil, or that it would create night sky, dark sky light pollution. There's no lights on this. The idea that it would impact the watershed. It doesn't consume any water. We've never used water for a solar array. A lot of misinformation came out, and we've compiled a presentation for the county that they're going to use in their next hearing, which address a number of these issues. The idea that there's EMF coming off the solar array. No, there's not. There's no toxic nature to this. The only danger there is of a solar array is if we don't raise it high enough, and we let people inside the fence, they could potentially pull on a wire and electrocute themselves. I mean, to spend extra money to protect the wiring from either animal or pedestrian access just costs more money. The simplest way to prevent it is to put a fence around it, right? But the fence makes it look like an industrial, complex. The fence I drew here is the exact same fence that's around the community garden. Exactly the same design. So it would complement the community garden, same fence that's around the apiary, I believe.
Can I jump But, this is Preston. Angela, I think, really good points, and I want to piggyback on what you're saying, because that kind of takes us back to what Dave was asking at the forefront. So really great comments, and I don't really know where to start here, but I might start by asking you guys some questions, because this is an opportunity here for you all to take the initiative and maybe, you know, put together a flyer, organize an informational session, go door to door. I think your biggest audience is gonna be the Parkside subdivision, the homeowners in Parkside and the homeowners in River Park. Of course, other people in town are gonna, you know, take part in this amenity when it comes about, but I think right here and now, before even the next public meeting, which is tentative, I won't pull up the website, but I think it's tentatively scheduled for early June. You really have an opportunity here to get out in front of this. And Terry's email is a really good starting point, pointing to the Uray County and San Miguel County Climate Action Plan, or the Town of Ridgway Master Plan, all the other guiding documents that are leading us to say, let's not just talk the talk, let's walk the walk. If you frame it around that, that's gonna go a long way. And I think you can get a lot of buy-in by doing that. And so I said I was gonna ask a question. I haven't asked a question, I guess, but I'll turn it over to you guys, because I think here and now, this is an opportunity to kind of figure out how to do all that.
So I have a question and a comment, and the question has to do, it seems like the approach we take has a lot to do with the costs, excess costs of raising panels versus doing fixed panels versus doing tracking panels. And I assume those kind of cost deltas are pretty well known, right? I mean,
Once we choose a design point and then cost it out, yeah.
okay, so, you know, the idea of having some of the panels raised and maybe no longer tracked so that we can recreate underneath them or whatever, I think is an interesting one. I guess my overall comment is, you know, cutting back 20%, so we just meet the town's needs right now seems a little bit short-sighted in a couple of ways. One, we're gonna have more need for more town power as the town grows. But also, taking out 20% of those panels doesn't seem like it's gonna provide a lot more, you know,
Park amenities.
or room for park amenities, so.
And I just arbitrarily chose that number because it was the threshold of what the current town usage is, just as a.
Well, I guess my point is in trying to cut back to that.
Yeah.
You know, if everybody says, yeah, that's a great idea, is that really a victory? I mean, is it, you know,
I mean,
we shot ourselves.
We gain a boulder wall and lose 20% of the power.
Right.
I mean, we have, the other thing is, we're currently, you know, putting a lot of these park amenities in the athletic park.
Right.
I mean, a lot of what people added to their notes is already being planned for half a mile away. The same is true, we're revamping, I don't know if you know this, but we're rebuilding the playground here in the Hartwell Park. There's the town, excuse me, the school is looking at a large plan with an athletic field that has some park features and a dog park. And
Right.
so there's some of the amenities that were envisioned here originally in the original master plan, and people are gravitating to, are being planned for within walking distance of this space. So they don't necessarily have to be replicated.
And to that end, are we kind of setting expectations wrong by suggesting that we might have those duplicate amenities in this park?
Well, that was one of my concerns, is that if, once you get people eating ice cream, it's hard to take ice cream away from the kid. But once they've tasted it, it's like, wait a minute, what happened to my boulder wall? No, I don't want solar at all, that kind of thing.
But it sounds to me like there's a tipping point in the number of panels and power they produce and style, you know, fixture, tracking that San Miguel has to have to make this viable economically.
Without there being gap funding. So if the town wants to pay the gap for the energy, you know, the difference in the cost of energy, the difference in construction, but to bear that cost on the backs of all of the members of which you all are, is something that the co-op board of directors.
They're not
won't
gonna do that,
They won't
right?
say, I'm gonna rob Peter to pay Paul kind of thing, because it's a not-for-profit. So it has to be
Well, there's
an
grant
equitable
funding.
solution.
There's grant funding opportunities too, but.
Other grant funds, yeah.
So.
And then those are what might help fill gaps if we can find them.
Terry.
Right now, the only grant fund I'm working on, actually there's two. One is the state grants, which I'm writing the grants for. The second is whatever the state grant doesn't fund, 30% of the delta is now eligible for the ITC through the feds because the Infrastructure Reduction Act now allows nonprofits to be eligible for that credit, and SMPA being a nonprofit. So if, just using simple math, if this cost $100,000 and the state paid for 66,000 of it, that remaining 33, I can apply for a third of that through the feds. There's a third of the remaining non-funded portion of the array is now eligible for federal funding. So I've got two sources of money to look at. So, you know, we could just put all the bells and whistles in here and see what it costs and see what the state will fund and see what the federal fund. If the difference divided by including the cost of financing makes the power output of this greater than what we pay for coal, essentially, then SMPA says we can't afford to do this unless some other mechanism funds that gap.
Terry, on the prior slide, I've been concerned as we try to sell this to folks. No,
This isn't the rendering that's gonna get
slide number
presented, though.
3. I know, but that's what I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
It's gonna be a lot
Slide,
sexier.
slide number 3.
Yeah. Super Bloom's gonna put something way
There'll be some shade.
prettier.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, the one you're,
This one?
yeah, please click on that.
No.
I mean, if you would, I like this, if you would put your wind block along that whole fence. You know, because I don't think people want to see the solar. We can show them peaks through the solar, but they are still objecting to seeing solar. And I know they'll see it from above and whatnot, but you know.
Which brings up an interesting point, because if we do raise it up, this right now, the solar panel is no higher than the 8-foot fence.
Right,
If we raise it up, it's gonna be much more visible to the community.
which we
And if
don't
we try
want.
to block it, you're gonna create this gigantic wall like the Great Wall of China.
Correct,
That's gonna be a real visual eyesore.
exactly.
Bill
So I-
Gibbons says we need to get over that thought pattern that solar's ugly. We need to change our whole mentality.
While I
agree with
While
that.
I agree with you, I think we have to
So-
sell it to the community.
We need to be thinking differently than we usually think. And one of those thought patterns is solar is beautiful. I'm sorry,
One
but
way to
it's
do
gonna
that.
save
That's
the,
how you sell it.
Wind block.
Yeah.
right.
Wind block.
Terry, do you have an idea of if it did get raised to a elevation where activities could take place under it? The delta in that, like it'd be 25% more
It has
or?
to be high enough to where Dave couldn't touch a wire. So
Yeah.
we're talking the bottom of the array would have to be 10 feet high,
Right.
Yeah,
which now puts the top of the array to almost 20 feet in the air. So it depends. Now, so you
Makes
can
quite a
raise
visual.
these trackers so where the low edge is, 10 feet
Yeah.
high.
yeah,
Or you can fix them. When you fix them, you'd have to either angle them to the south, just like the front array, or have them flat, which reduces their efficacy. An interesting point, just to comment on your last comment about the visual, getting used to the whole thing. Something that came up in the planning meeting for the San Miguel County response on solar was the idea that in this new energy transition, we as a society has to get used to the idea of trying to site renewable energy specifically at the point of load. Right now, we get our
What's that
power
mean?
from
I don't-
from
What's that mean at the point of load?
where we use the electricity.
Okay.
Produce it where you use it.
Oh,
Right now, we get our electricity from the Craig power plants 160 miles away. Think of how much land is used for the transmission lines that had to be accessed in easements and how much visible that those high tension wires are for 160 miles. The visual impact of those lines and the amount of land necessary to provide us our power is way more than what it would take to actually use land to produce the energy right here in town. So as you can see, this little array, small as it is, could provide 78 homes worth of electricity. If the system that we would add with Dana's property covers 66% of the town's complete electric use, the total between that. Of
For a
the whole
year.
town, of all the residents inside.
for a year.
for a year. So 2/3 of the entire town's electric use would be made available from the array combination of this system and the one we're looking at Dana's property. If we expanded that larger, Dana wanted to make it larger, we could cover 100% of the local electric needs produced right where it's needed, not, the other thing about transmitting all that long distance is wire losses. So you're producing even more, belching more coal smoke into the sky just to handle the losses in the wire transmitted 160.
Plus all the substations.
Okay, but, okay,
That's just.
so
Judy.
I still think it's valuable to understand what that additional cost is, because you're preaching to a group of people that are already on your side. And so this is gonna get presented to people that are gonna be a lot harder to convince. And so these are the questions that are going to get asked. There's going to be a lot of members that are gonna ask, well, what if I want to have yoga sessions or whatever here? What would it take to do that? And so I do think it would be beneficial for us to be prepared to say, well, this was evaluated and we're happy to do it. However, it doubles the cost, which then, like, what does that mean for the community?
I totally agree.
Because
The
that-
challenge I'm facing in answering your questions is I've spent 41 out of the $45,000 already. So in order to re-engineer this once, twice, 3 more times, comes at a cost to have to pay engineers to do that. Where do I get that money? Right now, the grant was 45,000, of which they gave us 36. 9,000 of it came from the Green Fund, which is, by the way, funded by the Totally Green participants, including the town. Can I tap the Green Fund? I have to go to the board of directors, say, I need another $10,000 in engineering funds to satisfy all of these potential design changes.
Well,
It's not a
You won't
design.
have to re-engineer till the very end of this process, right? A design concept has
That's
been
my hope.
selected.
That's my hope.
There's no sense in re-engineering anything until you.
Right, but to answer that
Bank,
question,
you have that.
to answer that question, I might be able to spend a couple $1,000s to say, hypothetically, what if we raised the array 10 feet?
I honestly, being an engineer, like knowing that there's engineers that literally do this all the time, they don't need to tell them you don't need an exact number. You're just
Right.
asking like, this will add roughly 50%
Right.
cost, like it doesn't have to
Well,
be
being
that.
being an engineer, you'll appreciate the fact that of that 41,000 I spent, 6,000 I spent on doing soil samples of the Green Street Park in order to see
Yeah.
how much ballast, how deep the pylons have to be.
Yeah.
I didn't have it engineered for 10 feet higher, which means I gotta go back and have the engineers reevaluate. the
Well,
soil.
I'm just saying, you could probably touch base with them and just say, give me a gut check, like I'm just need a rough
That's what I said,
number,
probably afford to get a
Yeah, I think
rough
it'd be
idea.
really useful if there's.
Angela,
something to do.
Angela has a question.
Thank you. I agree with Joyce, that we're gonna have to have some options. I respectfully don't agree with Dave. I don't like this. I don't like fences I think the community is gonna think that a park that shouldn't be excluded. I mean, we already have the community garden and the apiary that are fenced off. And if we fence off a whole nother entire zone around all the solar panels, I just think that the community isn't gonna go for that myself.
It's code.
Yeah.
It has to be fenced.
The state electric code requires 2 things. One, if you don't have the electrical access to pedestrians, it has to have a fence around it. So.
Yeah, I understand. So let me finish.
If we limit the fence, we're forced to raise the panels.
That's right. So again, that diversity of solar types of different, like visual, vertical variety, I think up towards the apiary, yeah, fence all that off. That makes total sense. But this lower section, it just feels like we should do something, even if it's reducing the solar panels, giving an option to reduce the solar panels that gives it a park feel. Because right now, to me, walking around a fenced in enclosure that I can't go into doesn't feel like a park. And that's
Yeah.
devil's advocate, and I
Yeah.
know that's gonna come up. I've heard it already from some people. So I just want us to have some answers and options, or say it's all or nothing, maybe we have to say, if we're gonna do it, it's gotta be fenced. But if we have the
Totally.
option back to,
Agree and appreciate your comments, and an interesting dichotomy in how we view this whole thing. Is this a park with solar as an amenity, or is it a solar system with a park as an amenity? And it's really which perspective
B.
are we dealing with?
That's my feeling, is that it's B. I think if you eliminate the fence, you have to raise those up another 10 feet, and I think that is going to piss off a lot more people than a fence.
Can be,
I mean, I just think that we should have that as an option because like, we're not gonna know until public comment, right? And so as long as we at least have some answers in our back
I'm not an
pocket.
engineer, but I am a contractor.
If you have the.
And that, let me finish. And I can tell you right now, if we raise those up 10 feet, the amount of steel and drilling and concrete is gonna add 25-30% to each one of those arrays.
Yeah.
One possible compromise, and this is what I will explore, is doing a covered raised carport over the parking area. See how much solar that would subtract from this array and then shrink this back to the north accordingly, opening up more of the southern part of the park to non-fenced area. That might be an interesting initial compromise.
can you
Yeah.
back to your, the original drawing, the one on the left? It shows it. You know, to that end, maybe it'll be more palatable if we do have to fence in an area to have that area kind of contained more. And so some of those panels at the bottom, if we can get more area at the bottom of the park and move some of those panels into that area closer to the sidewalk or something.
To the
Just-
carport.
Yeah, in other words, just sort of reconfigure that so that we get a bigger chunk of usable.
That's what I was saying, is if I did a carport over this, and I took that equivalent amount of solar and I subtracted it from the southern portion of this array, it might be that we cut this in half, leaving, you know, the half of this area as more of an open park with no solar.
But even, I guess I'm saying, even if you didn't do that, being able to kind of move those around a little bit to get a little bit more land at the southern end of that.
It's just.
I hear you, Dave, and I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the carport is gonna be an extra cost, right? So,
Right. You mean just shrinking the array, forget the carport and shrink the array at the expense of opening up more area?
not necessarily,
No, he's just talking about shifting it.
Yeah.
So I think all of us are on the same page of, let's try and optimize the solar, at least go in with asking as much solar as possible. And then if we have to compromise, then
Well, I think we
at
as
least
a
meet the
committee-
town municipal, but ideally more.
We as a committee probably need to provide guidance to Super Bloom as to what is an acceptable amount of shrinkage. So how much are we willing to see this reduced to meet the objectives of the town? And provide that guidance so that they can come up with some ideas of their own.
I guess that's my question to Super Bloom. How much shrinkage would they need to provide the other amenities that they think they're getting from the community? I mean, in other words, it's kind of a chicken and
yeah.
egg sort of thing.
And just to talk on their behalf, they don't need anything. They're just asking a natural type
Question. Yeah,
Because I guarantee you, they've never had this situation happen before, where
yeah.
it's what's option B, a solar array with some other park amenities type
Yeah.
of it, you know what I mean? So I think it was just a natural question for them to ask, and they're trying to get it as right as possible, considering so all these competing needs. You got folks who put sticky notes down for playground, pickleball court.
They can't keep having all sorts everywhere.
Make it steep.
I know. Okay, so do we as a board decide like, or give Super Bloom direction in saying that we would love to see them provide renderings with the full system capacity as designed, the 271 panels or whatever your wattage is worth, with integrating as much of the requested town components?
I would offer, who's the chair right now? Dave?
I am.
I would offer that a letter come from, the chairperson of the SAB on behalf of the entire SAB, laying that out, what you collectively agree on. And that be considered your input for, the first development phase of the concepts.
Okay.
You each can take the survey as well, but I think, a collective letter, one pager, bulleted, however you want to do it, would be helpful for them, to inform the design concepts.
You came back just in time.
Yeah, thanks.
You could tag, you could respond. So I copied Stacy with Super Bloom on the email that I just read. You could tag that letter onto a reply to that email.
Oh, and you can delegate to the vice chair.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Preston.
Harry?
So I'm hearing that we favor 100%.
Yep.
And we'd like to not go below 80% is basically,
I think that's.
and so we would like to have design plans that include the 100%. And if they want to also offer an 80% solution, that would be.
Can I ask you, do you know what the size of the parking lot is? In relationship to moving panels from
I don't know.
the dirt to that would be something to
Yeah.
find out, because if we could eliminate those first three panels, and put them on the carport, the first three long things.
It brings up an
And I think
it
that
brings up an
we
interesting
put that
point.
in
The
the
parking
letter
lot
already.
currently is outside of the actual park boundary. And so I don't know if the town owns that space or not. We'd have to look into that. Right now, where it's drawn, the parking lot here is not within the actual boundary of the Green Street Park. It's in the road that doesn't
It's in
exist.
the platted right away that probably ends right there. We'd have to look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have to.
Is there an option to put any panels on top of the battery that's gonna be at the San Miguel site? Like, could we have like,
The footprint of the battery is about the size of an F-150 pickup. So there's not much room. And I am looking at 100 kilowatts. Remember, this is 425 kilowatts. So 25% of what you see here is being designed on SMPA's property already. And covering the roof of the office as well as a solar carport for the fleet vehicles.
Great.
So, and people have asked me before, it's a great question. Why don't you just put it all over at San Miguel Power's yard? Well, the utility yard is a functioning utility yard that has large, heavy equipment coming in, picking up pieces. And so you can't put solar in that space, but I can put a carport and I can cover the roof. And that's what I'm gonna do.
So it occurs to me that, if keeping with the idea of putting a carport or covered parking there, putting panels on it, the structure that would go into, say, just for example, those first three rows right there, that structure is a cost built into the project. That structure would be probably a little less than what you would need for a covered car park, but not a lot less.
My guess is
Those longer posts, and you've got.
My guess is a covered carport here might take two of these segments, possibly three out of the design.
The full segment,
Yes,
Mhm.
the segment from here.
yeah, oh, that's awesome.
So covered carport might take one, two, or maybe three at max over here, which then frees up this much space.
And the materials and labor that are in the structure of those three rows.
Yeah, it would be offset
Would
some.
be- Would offset a lot of the costs.
Now,
So
there's
can we
additional
put
wiring
that in
of
our
course, to get
letter?
to the inverters.
There's that.
Yeah.
Your panels in your carport then wouldn't be,
It'd be
they'd be sick.
Maybe
Yeah,
fixed.
fixed facing south, just like the northern array, that would
Yeah.
be angled, tilted to the south.
So are you going to cost that out?
That's
Given guidance, so, I'm kind of waiting for the camel to be defined before I spend the money. I can do all these what ifs,
I
but.
mean, I guess I'm hearing that we'd love to see that costed out, assuming the town, that's property that could be used. for
That's the
this.
guidance,
That's the thing.
that's the guidance you need to supply to Super Blooms, because they're kind of in control of what the camel's gonna look like at the moment.
Right, so I think we'll
Offer
put
that.
that in our letter that says our team would also be
Trading some of the array.
willing to trade some array and evaluate the design of a solar carport.
But they're not gonna be able to do the engineering for that.
No, they
No.
they can help paint the camel, of which then, once the camel's painted, I can go cost out I'll start that process as best I can with the money I have. But remember that 4,000's left also has to fund the entire county special use permit process and public hearings for Dana's property. So I can't spend all my eggs in this one basket. Nonetheless, like I said, even if I have to go apply for future monies to put the solar on your property, I think this is probably the higher priority in terms of the fact that it's the lower hanging fruit in terms of public acceptance. And it would be nice to have the town be able to walk the talk and get this in place to complement the battery. And then we expand outward and keep building on the amount of local solar. Like I said, the solar on the SMPA yard, that's a slam dunk. I just have to write the grant, separate grant to get the 94,000 for it, which will cover about a third of it. But you know, this right now, the solar on this spot's costed out at 1.8 million right now. Just
Really?
this size. You know, the one,
That's a guesstimate or you?
no, I've got engineering.
1.8 to put that up?
You look at the, you know, what you're doing on SMPA and what you potentially do with Dana. The town has somewhat less control over the use of that in terms, I mean, it'll all contribute to the microgrid, but we potentially don't have the control to use that, offset that, what we're paying for the extra penny for green source power.
Right.
So adding power in other areas doesn't necessarily mean we can subtract any from this. So,
Well, I mean, if Dana wants to increase the size of the array on her property in exchange for reducing it here, that achieves a different objective in terms of producing as much energy as we need for the battery bank. It doesn't satisfy the town's objective of placing as much solar on town-owned property as we can, because that's written into our guiding documents. That's to achieve that objective. So it's achieving a different objective essentially.
Hey, Terry, have any communities in the Tri-County area looked into, like, if you have a Tesla supercharger site, does Tesla actually pay the town for the use of, like, renting those spaces? Or like, to me, it's like this should be a Tesla charging site. Maybe not like, you know, like the one in Montrose has modest number of chargers. Could have other types of chargers, but there's not a Tesla charging station. There's one at Mountain Village, but it seems like we're going to have one eventually. So do we know, does Tesla provide like rent for something like that?
They have various different programs. They'll fund their own installation of a charging. This is, by the way, this is the draft feasibility study that currently exists. It's 130 pages.
So I'll just jump in because I know there's a number of ways to do that, Angela. I imagine Tesla has purchased property and just put them on their own property. They've entered into agreements with private property owners, and I imagine they've done the same with municipalities and, you know, local governments on public property. So there's a number of ways I'm sure they've done it, and they have a ton of those stations around the country now.
Yeah, but there's not a ton around here, but
Right.
They're coming. So what I'm saying is sustainability park, perfect place to bring Tesla people to charge their cars in the shade. And if Tesla partners with municipalities, it could be a win-win thing to look into. There's a lot of Tesla drivers around here. I don't know. I just think that if we don't look into that at all, we're a little bit possibly missing a boat, because I think there's going to be one here eventually.
Dana, this is to answer your question specifically. These are the cost analyses of the various components. It's hard to read here, but the battery system alone is priced out at 3.3 million so far. And this is all the
Could you
cost.
send this to all of us? Or is this?
It's 20 megabytes the
Oh.
file. I had trouble sending it, so I could try to.
Never mind.
I could place it somewhere where you can access it. The solar on the SMPA yard is priced out at 814,000 right now. The solar on your property, get ready to hold on to your seat, is priced out at 5.7 million. Right now, I can only apply for 94,000. And then the solar on Green Street Park is priced out at 1.88 million, 1.85
for that configuration.
for the configuration that you saw. So, and you can see in this report that I just buzzed through, is 130 pages. This is what I've spent $41,000 on, is this report with all of this analysis in it.
Holy.
Yeah, including what you'll see up here is this 30 pages of it is just the soil report on your property and the town, which was, like I said, we spent 6,000 just on that alone, which is all the soil, from this company, something Lambert and Associates. So this has been an ongoing process with a lot of work put into it.
Wow.
That's at great expense, and we spent 41,000 putting all this together.
So it's 6:15. The meeting needs to be over at 7 because I have to leave at 7.
Good.
If anyone has any remaining questions on this item, I would suggest we ask now so that we can wrap up the conversation,
Thank you for the time.
lay out the next steps, and then move on to the next items.
So I'm gonna draft a letter and send it to all of you for comment. And then we can send that on.
Great. Well, thanks for the time to present all this.
Thank you.
With her.
Very amazing.
Wow.
You know so much.
Do you, Terry, do you have that report to the San Miguel County that you could share the kind of the fact finding, like for our next steps, like so we could put together a fact sheet or something to get ahead of the questions that we're certainly going to be asked?
There's a PowerPoint presentation being built by Eco Action Partners to present to the Board of County Commissioners at their next meeting. So once that PowerPoint has been developed, then I should get access to it. And you are all welcome, as even though you're not San Miguel County residents, to attend that meeting is just to learn if you want. I can send out, an invitation to when that meeting happens so you can see the interaction, how San Miguel County is treating some of these issues.
I just have one more, I know we're in a hurry, but in Durango, when I charge my EV, La Plata Electric is taking the money to charge it's a La Plata Electric charger, so I would assume that SMPA would do the same thing with a fast charge here, right?
Yeah, we're not selling EV charging electricity. Oh, we do have one.
But I mean, if you put a fast charge in, that's an income, that's money.
Yeah, but there's a huge cost to it, to build it. And so that's why Tesla has funded their own. So the one that's at the parking garage in Mountain Village and the one that's in Montrose, Tesla funded that entire thing.
So you aren't gonna fund a fast charge? You'd have Carport do it or some other?
You as
company?
a member of
As a-
utility can bring that up at a board meeting and ask that they evaluate that. But right now, there's no plans to fund that. The fast charger requires a 300 kilowatt transformer. And the demand charge on that is enormous. Companies like Tesla can absorb that because they have a different agenda. They want to sell cars, right? We have to make sure that anything that we spend money on is paid for by itself so that it doesn't impact your electric rates. So that's an interesting idea, and you're welcome to present that to the board of
Well, I'm
directors.
gonna go talk to La Plata Electric and see just if it was financially feasible for them to do that. I'll do that when I'm in Durango.
Lots of great discussion. Let's talk about idle-free Ridgway. That's next on the agenda.
Go get some water.
Can we just, before, Dave, sorry, before we go right to that, can we just agree that next steps for us are to be prepared for the next public input session so we have answers to questions and that we, we have a little bit of a plan of attendance and being there to champion our work here. I've been out of town all month, so I've been a bit absent, but I plan to be at the next one, and it'd be nice if we were. I feel like to me this is like the big thing that we're doing. We're doing a lot of little things behind the scenes, but this is the first big public shebang that we're going to have. And maybe you all have talked about this in my absence, but I just wonder if we have a plan as a team to be at the next meeting with prepared to get up and answer questions or present the solar. I assume Terry's going to present that. Or
Super Bloom
I
will
think-
present it, right?
Yeah, and it seems to me that having the town present the reason why we do this is probably most powerful. I think that's,
Yeah, I'm gonna cut you off, but I'll just jump in. I think, Angela, it's a good question. I think we have, a little over a month to kind of maybe game plan for that. And in a normal scenario, the consultant would present that information because they don't have all the specific information and can't talk as elegantly as Terry can and at the same level as he can about all this. It may behoove us to have someone like, Terry or one of his companions at SMPA come in to talk about it. Another idea would be to have John Clark as the town mayor get prepped enough to get in front of the people as he always does. He's
I think-
really great at that, right?
I think that'd be best, and then Terry could answer
Try
questions.
to try to sell that. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
out loud.
But,
But I think there is time. Angela, I don't think that's the preparation has really happened yet, and I think there's some time to do that.
As you know,
It's, what's the format for the time? Because we can't communicate via email really in terms of a committee. Are we gonna have another meeting prior to that?
Yeah, there'll be a June regular meeting. There's creative ways you guys can get together, right? I mean, yeah, sunshine laws are important, but phone calls and coffee meetings and secret meetings and stuff like that. There's ways to get around it. So,
dinners at my house.
but yeah, exactly. Dinner, movie night. I'm just trying to be helpful, but there's ways I think you guys can get together in the next several weeks or a month if you wanted to further the conversation and get better prepared, as you said, Angela, to be able to justify everything we're talking about.
I like the idea of, as you obviously can see, I'm in an awkward position wearing multiple hats, right? I wear the SMPA hat, I wear a town council hat. I'm also personally impassioned about this. So I'm somewhat conflicted in the eyes of the public. So to have John present
I really like that idea.
is a great idea. The other thing I can offer is the head engineer for the company that does all this has to come here to evaluate sites. And I've asked him if we could coordinate that with him being available for one of these meetings so he can answer the technical questions that I answered without me seeming so conflicted. I'm also a resident a block away from this park.
Right.
So I have so many different, plates on the table with this process.
Yeah.
I'm happy to step back from it.
Yeah, no, I love the town to drive it. Idle-free Ridgway. 5 or 10 minutes.
I think Deb had this on here. I don't know if it was requested by someone, but I don't have anything to report on Idle-free Ridgway other than we continue to have a educational campaign revolving around idle-free Ridgway, encouraging folks not to idle their cars longer than, I can't remember what the,
3 minutes.
yeah, I think it does say 3 minutes.
What is it?
We have banners and posters.
Well, I'm the one that suggested it, and because I saw this in Basalt, and they have metal signs on other signs in town, like at the post office, there's a sign that says 5-minute parking or something. That sign would be perfect, a metal sign that says it's illegal to idle your car over 3 minutes because everybody idles their car at the post office. And also a run coffee shop is a big idle reality too.
Your email I sent to Wiley at SMPA, just out of interest, and I think he sent you an email regarding, I think it was you, wondering, SMPA has blessed the employees' hearts. They leave at 5:30, at 5:20, they'll go out and start their cars, especially in the winter. And he's like, I've seen these idle-free signs in Ridgway. What's the regulation, or what's the word?
The ordinance.
The ordinance. And you responded, there actually is not an ordinance. It's just a request.
Well, they have an ordinance in Basalt because
Right.
it gives the ordinance number,
Right.
so I'm
We
thinking
don't.
we need to
Well,
get
it's
an
in-
ordinance.
Yeah, if you ever take the time to call communities about that specific type of regulation, it's almost impossible to enforce.
But at least you could put the word out so we can see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I
That's
don't.
why, yeah, that's why we have the educational campaign. So we can, in the spots that you're talking about, we can maybe put a banner over there or put some posters.
Some
But
metal.
right now, it's not illegal to idle your car, just to be clear. It's not illegal to idle your car in Ridgway. It's not cool at all, but it's not. We don't have any regulations. in the
But
municipal.
it's the only sign I've seen is the one that is a banner as you're coming into town that is with 4 other banners. So if you're actually driving, it's almost impossible to read them.
Right.
The post, like Dana said, the post office and the coffee shop are the repeat offenders, the market. It doesn't it doesn't have to be a law, but a metal sign that looks like, yeah, we mean this. We'd really appreciate if you didn't idle. And there's nothing at the library. I was just at the post office yesterday and there were 2 people idling their cars and I politely asked them I told them about the town's request and they went out and turned their cars off, but there's no signage there at all. Not even on the little sign, where all the school board stuff's posted. It's like, there's nothing there. And these are people that are coming through town that don't live here, that don't participate in an education campaign. And they're typically the ones that are the folks that aren't aware of it. And so increased signage in some regard seems like the only way to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we could use all the help we can get in helping to distribute the information we have, the posters we have.
So who would make a metal
Where are
sign?
the posters?
Town make a metal
We
sign?
have, we can't erect signs just willy-nilly. We have sign regs and we can't post them on private property. We could post them on publicly owned property,
yeah.
but then we have regulations on where they can go.
Okay.
And
Well, I mean,
I can say exactly, so, but we have posters that we can print out that you all can, for the time being, help us distribute at places that you're talking about, like the coffee shop.
What does it
post
take
office.
what does it take to push an ordinance through to make it illegal?
Good question. You could lobby the town council.
I have to go in front of the town council?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you would.
I'm gonna do that because to me, these metal signs like they had in Basalt, I don't know if you saw the picture. I sent it to everybody on this council. It has some substantial meat to it when you read it, especially when it says ordinance, blah, 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 underneath. I'm just trying to educate people. I don't care if somebody gets a ticket or not, but at least they'll see it and go, oh, I leave my car. Oh,
Absolutely.
I didn't know
But
that
just
was
for-
a problem.
Just to, provide some context, we have 1 deputy on at any given time. And their main concentration is calls for service and speed enforcement.
Well, it just would help
The-
people like Angela telling someone to turn their car
Sure,
off
yeah, and I
There's a
recognize,
sign.
that, but
instead of getting yelled at, because I've been yelled at a lot.
the picture I'm trying to paint is it's really difficult to enforce something like that. I bet if you actually talk to Basalt, they haven't issued many citations because it's incumbent upon people to, tell on each other and take videos of each other to substantiate that folks were actually idling. But you're right in the sense that if you actually have some regulations, you bet you have some better teeth to try to tell people that
Well,
they shouldn't
educate,
be.
but that's the whole point of our sustainability committee is to educate people, and that sign would educate people, I'm pretty sure. So I'll just work on an ordinance. Thank
Great,
you.
thank you, Dana.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
great.
think 3 minutes is too long.
I
Um,
agree too, but
I think no idling is very,
so
I'm with you. That's a,
we got,
I'm conflicted.
we have
Sometimes I
two,
pull up the post office and I go, what from did you?
2 other things on the agenda. Ridgway turf replacement project. Preston, you want to?
Yeah, so just submitted a grant to the Sonoran Institute for some technical assistance for the Ridgway turf replacement project. It's straight out of the Water Smart action plan we put together this last October as part of that workshop we went to. In this image here, the proposal is to rip out all this turf in Hartwell Park. It's on the east side of Hartwell Park. And replace it with drought tolerant, low water landscaping, hardscaping as much as possible, but with drought tolerant, water wise plantings. That project is going to be quite expensive and a lot more than what we really budgeted for. But we did get this grant submitted and we plan to issue an RFP here soon to have a company come in, or to have companies bid on this project. Again, a little worried about what the costs are going to be, but this is about walking the walk and not just talking the talk, which is why we put that action plan in place. But this is the pilot area, which will also serve as, you know, an educational area and demonstration garden, if you will. But I mean, that's a good chunk of turf that we haven't exactly measured yet. We haven't identified what the water savings is gonna be, but that's definitely one of the main benefits. Is water
So it's
savings.
that which is outlined in red.
Outlined in red,
And what would you replace it with? Some xeriscaping of some sort?
xeriscaping essentially.
Need a lot of pathways in it because people for the farmer's market, they walk across that grass all the time for
Right.
for that area.
See, there's already designated, you know, pathways between, you know, where the farmer's market is and the parking lots, but yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen exactly what's gonna go in there, but hoping to take out a lot of turf,
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
so stay tuned.
Good to know.
Final item on the agenda, discussion of revising building codes, which is something we talked about, gosh, a year ago. And we all know that when the town updates the building code, then we will institute the electric ready building code as per Colorado law. Currently, Eco Action Partners is working with all the municipalities to try to get a grant to help implement changes in codes in the region. And as I understand the timing, if that grant is awarded, actual fund receipt would probably start early next year. And, you know, so it would probably, my guess is that instead of Ridgway pushing forward this year with updating the ordinance, and moving that forward, they're going to probably be interested in delaying that plan to get help with it and get funding with it. My proposal is, if that's the case, my proposal is that we actually come up with a document from our committee, a document that would be educational for the builders and the people applying for permits, to educate them about the benefits of electrification and putting in, you know, wiring now. And the thought is that people aren't getting that message right now. And also it would help prep the field, if you will, for the changes that will follow a year from now. And seems like there's no reason not to do that. We can put together a draft a document, you know, present it to town council, let them do their wordsmithing. Ideally, you know, perhaps anybody applying for a permit initials off on this so that they've received it, you know, or some way to get it out there.
Just I'll offer a quick, wonderful idea. I don't see a need for the town council to sign off on it at all. I don't see that formality being needed. I'd be happy to take a look and we can just commit to whatever you put together, you know, getting it, you know, printed out, what have you, in the clerk's office so that when Mike and Karen are ready to issue a bill, or no, it'd be at the time of application.
Right.
At the time of application, Karen's ready to provide that to prospective builders.
Yeah, you should tip, I don't know who's planning on writing this, if you're taking that on yourself or if you're asking the committee to do it, but SMPA can probably help with some of the.
I was gonna suggest, I
That'd be
know
great.
they have lots of literature that
Is there a lot of it that's already sort of ready to go into code? I mean, basically, we're looking at codes and turning that into education. Or what? I mean,
Yeah, although I think it's it'll be a lot less specific than anything in the code. I mean, and I can send you a copy of what that code is gonna be. Yeah.
Maybe the committee.
But I think, you know, and we'll and we can provide references so that, you know, people can go find that code if they want to, but I think the idea is just to,
Higher level document.
when I talk to people who are building in the area, they're just not thinking about this.
Did you see Kim Wheels's email that the people that have written the code for Polis are now working on exactly what you're talking about to present to everybody? Did you see that?
I
email from
didn't,
her?
so I'll,
Yeah, they've started new meetings. You can listen to the meetings. They're online on YouTube. And they're doing exactly what you're talking about, trying to write some sort of a user-friendly document for
great.
all of
Here
us.
it comes.
I'll ask, I'll ask.
Yeah.
Taylor
Might as well
about
do it now.
Google, or, because I'm sure she sent it to you, that if I'll send it to you. I bet I
that.
still
Okay,
have it,
good.
that email.
That'd be great.
That'd be great to not
If
have to
somebody else has
reinvent the
done it,
wheel. Yeah.
that, yeah, let's adopt it, but yeah, and I can
Yeah, I'll
talk to her
send it
about
to you.
that. Good. All
But
right,
it makes
thanks.
sense that the state would do that since they're implementing the
Yeah,
higher
it's
level
just what
guidance.
Dave is saying, it's so, it's educating.
Is there a local group of, you know, of architects to any of the architects in the area? Is there any kind of association or whatever? Because really at the architect stage, you want to start thinking about this.
You want to form the builders first and the architects. Before.
Yeah.
the general-
Yeah, that's a good point.
We'll work both ends towards the middle, I guess.
By the time the builder sees the plans and the plans are permitted, a lot of the decisions are been made about
Yeah,
whether you don't have gas or whatever.
that's a completely good point.
Right.
So an earlier stage, so. I don't know how
Top
you
down
would do
versus
it.
ground up kind of thing.
I don't know how
I
you.
mean, one thing is to just meet with all the architects in the area, but you know, that's kind of hit and miss maybe.
Yeah. Ken
But
is our
that,
expert.
that's a good suggestion, though. Once we get closer to that informational stage, holding a consortium or a workshop.
Architects and
Yeah.
builders.
Right.
Sponsored by the SAB.
Mhm.
Well, that would be, that's a great thought. That's also the whole, and for more background, that's the whole point of this energy cohort that Kim Wheels and others at Eco Action are kind of spearheading. So next Wednesday, town council is gonna elect whether or not to get involved with this cohort, and be part of that grant application to get technical assistance, get the experts in here to fill the room and a room in theory full of architects and builders to educate them on why we should be going to 2021 International Energy Efficiency Code and the solar ready, was it solar and what ready?
EV.
Solar and EV ready
Yeah.
code.
You're gonna have to have lots of alcohol at that meeting.
So that's what this grant is all about.
Sure.
I mean, at any point, we could just draft an ordinance and put it before the town council and just approve it. That's not always the best route to go. That's why we, you know, it should always be community driven.
Right.
Right. I think we all fully believe that. So I think this is a great opportunity to get some technical assistance and get some experts and stuff to help usher it in. So just to give some more background.
Right.
But exactly what you're talking about, like a consortium, that's what this grant's aiming to achieve.
That's great. I didn't know.
Not just in Ridgway, but I think Mountain Village is already 2021, right? So Telluride, Silverton, Uray.
Uray.
Well, I don't know who's gonna do it,
Exactly.
but Uray,
Right.
Norwood.
Well, I
all
think
these
the
other
state's gonna
communities.
require that next time you update your code, you have to follow.
They've already done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So the only downside is it delays us a year or 9 months. But if we can take a step now to educate people, I think that there's no reason not to.
Great,
So,
great thought.
um,
And that's our role as a
Right.
advisory board.
great. The next file, Angela.
Yes, back to our roles at advisory board. I maybe missed something. I'm a bit jet lagged right now, but it doesn't seem like we have an action item for the idle free. I left that conversation filled a little bit at a loss that we were told we could go put signs up as a bunch of individuals. And to me, that is not what we're here to do. We're here to advise the town and recommend actions. And I just kind of felt like we came out of that conversation and many of our conversations without an action step. and without a step either from Preston saying, write a letter, submit it, I know we're not gonna get an ordinance on this, that was pretty clear, but write us a letter that you'd like metal signs that say, this and this, and propose it to town council. But for me, to leave it at like, we'll pass out a bunch of posters for you guys to go put up on your own, that's not what we're here to do.
Yeah,
And
Angela, you may have missed it, but Dana volunteered to go and present before town council and recommended
okay, thank you.
establish an ordinance. So that was our main
Yeah,
action.
and I just feel like sometimes we talk about these things, but we don't have a unified message for the town. And maybe that'll be reflected in the minutes that all of us are supportive of an idle-free increasing education for visitors. Yeah, maybe I totally missed that part, but it is something that I have concerns with our process that I sometimes feel we talk about things and then things don't go to town council because, they just, there's blocks that are there's blocks to change and things cost money and processes aren't easy to put in place, but that can't stop us from suggesting things. That's what we're here to do, right?
Right.
To
Absolutely.
suggest things.
And,
So-
I've said that, and I'll jump in, it's Preston, I'll just jump in and say, the initiative has to rest with you all as members. Dana wonderfully just, volunteered to put something together and go before the town council. That's what's needed for any recommendation coming from this board for any sort of action, what have you. So, I just want to make sure that's clear. The initiative, Dave's gonna write the letter to send to town council. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The motorcycle got in the way, but,
Yeah, it feels like it's a bit of a scattered process. Maybe I'm not understood, Preston, but it feels like some of our topics, like Dana volunteers, but that's not like us as a committee making a recommendation to town council. Thank you, Dana, for speaking on our behalf. But to me, these meetings that should have like action steps, and from this meeting, Sustainability Advisory Board recommends this, this, and this without us having to write an individual letter on each. This is a process-oriented thing. It's not about this and that. It's like the big picture of how we interface with the town as an advisory board to be effective, to feel like we're doing our job, pushing things forward. And yeah, they're going to say no sometimes, but it feels a bit haphazard. Does it not feel that way to anybody else?
So are you kind of saying what you would like to see rather than Dana going in front of the council with suggestions about signs and an ordinance or whatever, for her to come before us and hash it out and make sure that we all agree as a board that that's the way to approach it? And then
Not really. It's great that Dana's going. And I don't want us to get stuck on this particular thing. I'm trying to articulate how our process works in general, how we communicate our recommendations to town council. And I feel like it's piecemeal, that it's like, okay, Dana's gonna go here and now we're gonna write a letter on this topic. And it doesn't feel to me like it's reflected in the minutes or the outcome of the meeting goes directly to the board. And maybe or town council, maybe I'm wrong.
I think you bring up a good point. Something that maybe needs shoring up is that the ex officio town council person, who is now me, has an obligation to provide the town council a report based on our meetings. And it's been done pretty loosely. It comes usually after the town manager's report, one of the last agenda items on a town council. Maybe I need to take that concept more seriously and take the minutes of the meetings, the agenda, and describe what was discussed and what is being recommended. I don't know what the part that I'm fuzzy on is what's the formal conduit for action items? Should that be presented in the SAB report, or does it become more formal something that we're requesting staff put into the packet as an agenda item? I mean, how do we bridge that?
I think you make a good point. That's agenda items can't come through that process, but I think that you serving as that conduit ex officio role, so there's a perfect opportunity to regurgitate what
Expose the issues that we're
expose the
discussing.
issues, regurgitate what's discussed and get direction or consensus from town council from there.
So using Dana's, this issue of the signs as an example, would that be something that I present as an issue before the council in this report, or does the SAB need to have a regular time slot for action items that we want to see decided before council? How do we, besides mentioning what we discussed and the issues that have concerned the SAB, how do we implement some formal recommendation? Does it go to you as the town manager to put it in as an agenda item? In which case somebody from the, probably the president, what's your role, chairman, presents on an action item request. So we haven't really done that yet.
Right, and that, and it's incumbent upon you all to do exactly what Angela's talking about, to figure out what the structure is, to figure out who's telling who what, who's presenting what. So, it's good that you guys are having this conversation. It's taken quite some time, but I think you're on the right track. As the ex officio representative, you can highlight everything that's been discussed, action items, et cetera, to the town council. You can get direction from there. Maybe Dana beats you to the punch and comes before the town council in a public comment period and says, I think you should think about this. You may not always get a yes or a no or anything like that, but there may be more substance and power coming from you as the town council representative to say, hey, we talked about this. This is what the SAB wants to see. This is our opinion. What do you all think about that? If so, should we draft an ordinance? Should we hold a meeting? Should we, depending on what it is.
Ask some questions, not present. So,
to be honest with you, that wasn't happening before.
right. That was my observation.
Yeah, what you're saying. So I think that's a really.
Gary, that is exactly what we need, is a bit more of a reporter. Yeah,
I remember when JT was the representative and he was going in front of you guys supposedly to be telling you some of the things we discussed. And then we were a little bit paranoid that, because we didn't know what he was saying to the council. Like, it needs to be, I think, presented to us first and then in front of the council to make sure we're all on the same page.
Well, let me see if we can evolve the process. But
Maybe
my
send out an email. This is what I'm gonna say to the town council in the meeting. Does this look like what we discussed? And then we all know that we're all on board with you, rather than just you going in with your own perception.
my current plan would be to take the agenda as written, as presented,
Just one.
any other conversations, and just brief them on what we've discussed. And I can conclude a couple things out of this meeting. One is that our chairman's going to write a letter to Super Bloom suggesting some guidelines for the design. The second would be that we have a consensus over wanting to see, some signs made. I can't remember what else we concluded here.
So I think Angela has a really good point. I would suggest that maybe for our next meeting, we spend a little bit of time formalizing our process. And it seems like there's kind of two things. One is informing the council of what we're doing. But then there are sort of official actions that we would like to put before the council for their approval or working with. And so that seems like that's kind of two levels. Yours is a communication level saying, this is what we're doing, this is what we're working on. But if we want something, the council to actually take an action, it seems like there's something that needs to be a little bit more formalized.
I think,
I think, I agree too, Angela. This is sausage. And I don't think it's realistic to expect every item for discussion to result in an actionable item.
definitely not.
A lot of stuff that we are talking about, and it is definitely sausage, is informative. And we are coming to conclusions on some of these items that we need more information before we can come up with a coherent action item. But you're right, we have to have a little more process to what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we've spent our first year as learning mostly, our first year was mostly being presented to. And now we're finally moving some things forward, and not that we didn't do anything the first year, but it was a lot of people coming and providing presentations on what's going on in the local region already. Yeah, I appreciate that everyone hears my request, and I think will really be feel more effective, that at least we're being a little more organized in what we present to town council, and we're actually advising and asking for things. And yeah, we'll get shut down. We don't have a budget, it's like they're gonna say no, but we have to try. We have to shoot for the moon. That's what we're here to do. Is
I
do our-
propose that for the next meeting, we make it an agenda item to formalize this process, or at least begin to formalize that process. And to one of the points you just made, we don't have a budget. So when it came to be that we needed town money, and remind me how this worked, Preston, to put together the SAB website, did we go before the town to request funding for that? Or was that done ad hoc, with no funding? How did the SAB website get funded?
Ad hoc.
Was ad hoc?
Yep.
So we didn't request any budget or any expenditure?
No.
No, that's okay.
But when we come up with an action item that needs to have town council blessing, there needs to be a formal process for the SAB to present those ideas to the town council,
Do you,
rather than be in an ex officio report on what was discussed at the meetings. And maybe that's what we decide is the right conduit. I don't know.
well, I do like your ex officio report. I do think that that's important to do. There may be another level for other things, but I think,
For direct action items.
yeah, but for, as a matter of course, after every meeting, it would be nice for you to update.
And maybe what we should do as a committee is at the end of this meeting is agree on the bullet points that we want to be communicated to the council on what we discussed. I mean, I can do it on my own and I can send it as an email, but that's an extra step, but it's possible. I mean, we've got the agenda that Preston is.
It'd be a lot easier just at the end of the meeting, as you say,
Yeah.
to just summarize the meeting, say, these are things that you.
Three things that we discussed and we want the town to know, council to know that we're discussing.
Mhm.
And I think I have those, and I'll
Can we do that now?
recompile them from today.
Yeah.
But we'll probably
It's a good
formalize.
habit. Good routine to get into at the end of every meeting, and then, if there's, just remind Dave, he's got to write that letter, and Dana, she's going to present to town council, and just a brief recap of who does what, when, and how.
And the turf replacement was presented which we didn't have any action on. It was more.
Yeah, I think that's more educational.
Information.
Yeah. So, no, I think it's the Green Star, the street master plan and the idling vehicles and the trying to move the building code education
I
process.
didn't write all these down, but they're pretty much reflected in the agenda, right?
It'll be in the minutes.
And when did the minutes get produced and by whom?
Well, whoever the staff person is, but, yeah, so I'll do these, but I won't have them until closer to the next meeting.
Or the following?
No, the following SAB meeting, so.
Oh, I see.
It'll be.
Okay.
I think-
I'll be at the town council meeting to
Right.
help you.
Yeah.
I'll try to piecemeal together this first shot, but I think if we can
I think,
formalize this.
for the Green Street, there's the fact that we're gonna prepare a letter for Super Bloom.
Lighting
Saying,
guidance.
what size, and I don't know if it's something for you to present, but I think the issue that we discussed a lot is kind of, you summarize it. Is this what's the vision? Is this a solar park with some amenities or a park with some solar?
Right.
And that needs to be figured out at some point by somebody. So,
Well, I think the letter of guidance from the SAB is a powerful stakeholder input. And that's how it's.
so we're only one, right?
Right,
We're just,
right.
yeah.
Well, and I'll present that to the council and the council might say, we agree with that direction. And maybe I'll ask the question.
When is the next town council meeting?
Next Wednesday.
I'm out of town.
By the way, you're all welcome to come to these meetings or Zoom into them. So
I
you can
won't
drink
be
a beer
able
while
to
you're watching.
present until I get back. the next town council.
Well, then.
But Terry can
Terry.
suggest it.
Mhm.
Just
Can
be
bring it up.
forceful.
I do my best without being, I get a lot of eyeball rolls at me as it is.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Real quick before I lose track of it, I haven't been focusing on your property because this has taken up so much.
Oh,
I'm gonna
no
turn attention
problem.
to it.
I'm I'm just going forward with my conservation easement.
Yeah, good.
And it's no biggie because I've just zeroed out like 4 to 6 acres. I've told him I'm not quite sure that's the only thing I need to know from you.
It's about 6 acres is okay.
Okay, then I'll put it as 6 acres.
Yep.
Our last item of business is approval of the minutes from the March 18th meeting. Any discussion? I have a motion to approve the minutes.
I second
All right, Dana makes a motion.
it. Oh, I mentioned.
I abstain. I wasn't here.
I'll second.
There we go.
Dave seconds, all those.
All in favor? Aye.
Right.
Right,
That's a railroad job.
There's an aye.
there's an aye. We have 2 abstentions because they weren't here. People weren't here. Ken and I are not here.
Passes.
All right, and our next meeting is June 6th or something like that.
It'd be June 5th, probably.
June 5th?
Yeah, Wednesday.
Okay.
That's what I know.
I'll probably be zooming in because we're doing a bike ride.
No,
And I won't be at the Super Blue meeting because of that. So, but it's great, Angela, that you're at the Super Blue meeting. Others,
I went.
you'll be there,
First
Dana?
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're great.
Hard, but
Adorable young girls. They're
I didn't do the double meeting. I
Right.
will come to this next.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So we'll have at least 4 people.
I think, when is it?
I think it's the 16th of June.
David, what's your last name?
Kmeyer.
Yes. that was
Thursday,
good.
the 6th is the
Oh, the
Super
6th
Bowl?
of June?
6th of June.
Oh, okay.
So it's the day after our meeting.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Well, that's good.
yeah.
We'll be
All right. Thank you, everybody. I got.
What time is the Super Blue meeting? Do you know?
I think it says to be determined. We haven't.
Okay, because
Well,
that's,
it'll probably be at 5:30 or 6.
because that's the SMPA annual meeting in Nuclear that day. So Terry
All
will.
right, 6th of June. Is. What else is?
Well, that's the Super Blue meeting, the 6th of June.
Yeah, so that would
Thank you,
be,
everyone.
Bye,
This
Ken.
is-
Yeah.
yeah, thanks, Ken. So that is going to be a
What time is it?
conflict.
Oh, it's
with-
at 5:30. Well, no, the annual meeting will be over by then.
Time's the annual meeting.
Usually it's during the day.
Okay.
Middle of
Yeah,
the day.
we would look at a 5:30
I
or 6
think.
o'clock.
No, it's not. It's usually dinner.
Is it dinner, not a lunch?
Yeah, it's 5:30 and
We
8:30.
can look at modifying the date, but we need to know. So if you
Maybe,
can,
maybe about one day if you push the
Yeah.
Friday.
That would help me.
no one will come on a Friday.
Well, then it's Wednesday maybe. But yeah, that's gonna compete with a lot of town residents that want to come for the free dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and is it here or is it in?
It's in Nuclear, so maybe not.
So if you can let me know what day
It is the
or what,
6th.
it's the 6th, at what time it starts.
5:30.
We can modify this if needed.
It's 5:30 to 8:30.
Oh, you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on my calendar. I won't be there because
Oh,
I'm
I
at
see.
the biking, but
I'm trying not to be involved in that level of detail anymore. It doesn't.
I understand.
But it is a free meal.
Pardon me?
But it is a free meal.
Yeah, I'll be there for that. Well, no, maybe not. It's in Nuclear. Tough. It alternates every year.
Well, if you're not gonna go,
And
and
that's-
a whole lot of people from Ridgway won't go over to Nuclear for it. It may be that, we just move ahead with that meeting on the 6th. But
I'm sure they want me.
I just-
Because I'm a contractor.
well, yeah,
Evaluated.
y'all decide. Thank
Is
y'all.
there-
Uh,
Quick question to Terry and Preston. Is there a plan for town to have completely electric vehicles? Is that like a 2030 goal?
I periodically poke the bear on that issue when we're up against replacing a particular fleet vehicle, but There is no comprehensive plan for that. But, to that point, goes to Dave's point, that's future load growth for the town. If we
Mhm.
start replacing
Exactly.
fossil fuel vehicles with electric vehicles, then we want to be able to
Gotta
power
have
those
the
vehicles with solar.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Has a $5,000 EV vehicle, $5,000.
Who, China? Yeah.
China.
Right.
Wow.
That's amazing.
60
We need,
million people. to
well, I mean, so many people can't afford them over
Oh, yeah.
here.
make. They even have a drive-in that you could drive your car in, and it automatically replaces the battery bank in 2.5 minutes. And then you drive out. It's like a car wash.
Is that in China?
Yeah, in China.
We can keep talking, but I'm gonna declare us adjourned at 6:50.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. Good to see ya.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
By the way, S&P